Okay.
We're rolling.
We're recording.
Yeah, that construction's a little bit of a... I'm sure it'll get picked up on the mic, but hopefully not too bad. You guys can hear that.
You're gonna have to bear with it. Bear with us. Nobody asked for this.
These birds are loud too. Damn nature.
That's what you get for being an unofficial and unlicensed and unprofessional podcast such as us.
Unprofessional? I beg to differ, but certainly unlicensed.
Exceptionally unprofessional.
And certainly unasked for.
Yeah, nobody asked for this. One of these days we'll figure it out. Can you call it like, okay, I get caught up on this. Like everything is a podcast now.
Mm-hmm.
Originally a podcast was just audio. Now every podcast has, I don't know, I said podcast, like a
I didn't
jersey.
catch it, but
I did. It came out of my mouth.
What's your jersey flag fly, man?
I don't have that flag. That's not my flag. Yeah, like everyone's got the video companion to the podcast, but we don't actually have a podcast. We're just filming this. So this is literally a OG, like what they did when YouTube first came out.
Okay.
People did vlogs, but they did them by themselves. And that's what they called them. But that's like, it's weird because that was like the first thing people thought of to do.
Sure.
And then it's like we did this whole circle, and then like podcasts were like, oh, yeah, podcast. And it's just like, this is radio.
Yeah.
But different,
Well, it seems like that, if you're worried about, if we're going to put it into categories,
Yeah.
Okay, podcasts in its current form, being video and audio,
Yeah.
isn't that just a TV show?
Yeah, it's like the most low effort TV show.
Yeah, this is reality TV at that point. It's
No, because reality is like, I don't know.
partially scripted.
Well, yeah, there's like producers and incentives and things like that, and there's like
We both
slice
worked in
of
reality
life.
TV.
Yeah, we have. And modern reality TV, like practically like a game show.
Okay.
More than anything, right?
Yeah, I guess so. If you're talking about a game show, I mean, there's a prize, right? Like if you're watching The Bachelor, the prize is you
love.
get to have love in your life. So,
I hate The Bachelor.
I
feel
know
like
you do.
I just find it so uncomfortable because it's the gamification of romance, and it's weird to me that like everyone is so, not everyone, like a lot of people are so on board with it, because to me it is like, it's sick, it's weird, it's so uncomfortable and awkward, and like I don't get how people like, is it just for the fame? Do they sincerely think they're gonna like find love? Is that their objective? Because they all act like that's real.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah, I wonder with because first off, it's very dystopian in the sense that
Extremely dystopian.
first off, you're gamifying love, just like you said, but the interest in it, and not really so much the interest. Like I guess there is a small part of people that are like, yeah, I really hope contestant A. And
they like root for them.
Yeah, and the host, I hope they get together and I hope they do fall in love and live a happy life. But that's not the bulk of the show. The bulk of the show is the drama leading up to that final winner, and it's like watching that and the
It's a
glee.
train wreck.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what people like about it. But I mean, if you had another thought, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
But yeah, so and that really kind of shows where we're at, because it you get the I don't want to say you revel in their pain. That seems a little too harsh.
But that's true.
But there's something.
That's part of it.
I mean, in the train wreck, like someone probably got hurt, and that's not something that crossed your mind when you're watching a train wreck, right? It's like, look at this wreck. It looks crazy. You know what I mean?
It's in the back of your mind. Because if you're like rubbernecking down the road and you're looking at an accident, a part of you is like, oh, is there like a dead body? Like, where's the blood? Where's the blood? That primal thing of just like, come on, show me the blood. I can smell it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, oh shit.
But even that's not quite like, it's not. You're not rooting for the pain, but you're also like, is it there? Like, can I see it?
I think it's a part of it. Whether you want to say rooting for it, people want it. It's there. It's there.
Sure.
But that's the thing that I think. Okay, because to me, if you back it up even from that, because I can understand that part of like, just if you want to call it primal, I don't think it's primal. I think it's a little bit more subversive than that. The part that drives me nuts is it's literally the competition of like 20 women or however many that start, and they're sitting there talking about like this one guy, and they're like, oh yeah, I can't, like, oh, it's gonna be so good for you when you get that like date, and it's just like, it's so artificial and like unrealistic, and then they do these big elaborate dates, and then they get like, oh my god, I can't believe it, and it's like, are you like, what reality is this? It's not like
Ours.
when, okay, but like, what scenario do you have 20 women who are like aware of each other and all after you,
right,
you know, the Bachelor, and like not on this show, and they're all like, cool, they'd all be so pissed off. They'd be like, what are you playing me with all these women for, you know?
Right.
But they all sign up for it and all kind of come to it like with this like earnesty, this earnest nature, like, I'm really gonna I feel such a strong connection with him, and then it's like he's saying the same thing to all of these girls, but he has a genuine connection with each of them. It's just gross.
Right. And on top of that, you know they all watch previous seasons of the Bachelor or Bachelorette, right?
That's why I think they're all in it for the fame.
And that's absolutely part of it. There's people there that are there to build their clout, I guess. It's not clout when it's not online, right? There's something another.
It is their clout, because how many of them are actually famous from it? If anything, they're social media famous. They're like, they're barely D-rank celebrities from their experience on here. They'll have like a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram or something, and that's it.
Enough to get paid.
Sure. But like, that's what you're going through all this for? You're like humiliating yourself for some man? Come on, women.
Do better.
Be better. Sorry, I just, the Bachelor rant, it just drives me a little nuts.
Well, you know, I don't think I've ever seen a full episode beginning to end. I've only seen it, you know, whenever your girlfriend has it on. And it's you know, there's some intrigue there, you know. I'm always just kind of looking like, oh yeah, she's hot, she's cool, she's not cool, okay, we hate her, fine, I hate her too.
Yeah, she's a bitch.
Yeah,
Fuck her.
I'll play with that just because it's like, I can't take it seriously, as you know, same as you. Like, it's just like, oh, look at these people over here trying to pretend they're gonna fall in love, but apparently a few of them do stay together, you know, just as long as any other natural relationship.
It's possible. You know, you both went on there. You both got similar sort of like morals and values. You know, like, so I'm sure you could find somebody who, you know, fits your lifestyle. But I don't know. Whatever. What else are we gonna talk about today? Because we got some stuff to get through.
Yeah. Right after our last episode, you know, obviously I'm very plugged into the political matters of the world, and a few things hit my psyche in a way that I felt required me to address them. Yeah. And kind of bounce some ideas off of you.
Let's do it.
You know, we've been teasing about doing some politics type stuff, and we haven't really done it. So this is
time.
You know, kind of our first political type conversations. And also, we're going to try and have some more structure in the episodes that we haven't really done.
It's advisable, but also
we're going to try and see how this works out. So let's see. I have a couple of thoughts. A couple of things went on. I'll let you choose.
Oh boy.
What you feel like
getting into?
Yeah.
Digging myself a, you know, grave too?
Yeah. So we already, full disclosure, we already said that we were basically hard lefties, right?
I mean,
I said I was. I don't know if you said you were.
I don't know if I consider myself, I think social, like, progressive issues, definitely, like, pretty left-leaning in general. I would like to consider myself a moderate, but I also don't think that's real or like realistic to consider myself, like, with the landscape that we're in. But yeah, I would say in general and on a lot of topics, yeah, pretty left leaning.
Okay, and just for the record, I think there's a huge debate on like what moderate is, and centrist, and
Yeah.
where those actual, because it's very amorphous. It can mean anything to anyone.
Well, yeah, and at this point, like I feel like some uh, people who want to consider themselves like completely like aligned with like the left, like I don't even know. I hate the word agenda because like it's so misleading.
Sinister.
It can be. It just can be like weaponized so easily. So that's why I like to kind of not claim like left or right because I think that's also like super limiting. But for the context of the audience in terms of just knowing where we are coming from, I think that's a fairer assessment. You
Right.
know, like
And I guess a good way to ask the question is, if you're sitting in the election booth and you got the option of Bernie Sanders,
Yeah.
Joe Biden, like Hillary Clinton, all the way to Trump, whatever.
establishment.
Right.
Bernie, party bro.
Party Bernie. Yeah, that's what he's known for. But you're someone who would pull the lever for Bernie, correct?
Oh yeah.
And you would do it without much thought.
I mean, yeah, Bernie's the only one who says stuff that I actually can get excited about. Any other Democrat is bought and sold by the establishment. That's why it's like when we say left, it's just like it's such a bummer to even like have to be like, oh, yeah. But it's like the Republicans are too big of assholes to ever get on board with a lot of their policy ideas, if they even have any, other than just being an asshole and like, kind of. Being just a wall towards any level of progress towards, a civil nation, Their job is to just be like, fuck you, I farted,
Mm-hmm.
Deal with it.
Take it.
Fuck
American
you.
freedom.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that being the case, colloquially speaking, you are a left winger. Okay, you're gonna walk in any.
Yeah.
So, despite the terminology and the labels,
Despite it all, yeah.
You're known as.
You're gonna put me in a box, Alvin.
I'm gonna
sure.
box you right up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's where you belong. So with that being said,
Party.
and again, we've said this before, that we'll have more conversations about the fact that despite us being effectively Bernie Sanders type lefties,
Sure.
we both work for the Daily Wire.
That's a fact. That did happen.
For a number of years, I think. For me, I don't know. You were only there.
I don't even know if I made a year.
Okay.
It was like maybe 8 months at the most.
8 months. Okay, but even in that 8 month span, you were able to solidify your legend status.
Yes.
Which we won't show now, but at some point we'll have
One
to
day.
show why you're so beloved.
I made it. Yeah. There's a picture of me on the walls there.
Yeah, you did some really great work for those guys, and you will forever be remembered as that guy that did these things.
And then I just fucking left, and I was like, bye.
Legend status. So, and I was there for 3 years. So,
wow.
I know, which were good times actually. I think despite being a lefty, some people would be surprised about my.
You loved it there. We'll have to get
I love it, but I loved it in the sense that I'm a psycho, and I loved being around a bunch of people that I didn't agree with.
Yeah. No, it was. You get off on it.
I do. I don't know what it is. I don't know when it started.
I don't either.
One day I just woke up and I just like, I love just getting in arguments constantly.
Well, you're so disarming though. Like I feel like you can get in a lot of arguments and like without people realizing like how much you're disagreeing with them, and it just probably throws them off like in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bet it started in those Chiefs fucking chat rooms.
Oh, you know what? It probably did. Yeah.
That's probably where you got your,
Not the chat rooms. Just being in Chicago,
yeah,
being a Chiefs fan, and just like, because any Chicago Bears fans, like they're rabid about the Bears for unknown reasons.
Belligerent.
Most
Most sports fans are fairly belligerent, especially on home turf.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Okay, we'll drill down on that some other day. But
Yeah.
so I wanted to get into a couple things that were kind of bugging me over the last couple weeks,
Let's do it.
and let's. One actually isn't all that political, but we can talk about these things. All right. So first off, the hot button issue of the trans identity.
So hot.
So hot right now.
So hot right now.
Topic one.
Okay.
We can get into Fox News. I don't know if you heard
The settlement?
the settlement
Okay.
and the reaction to that.
Yeah. Okay.
We can get into, this is the non-political one, Chat GPT.
Whew. That's gonna be an ongoing one for the rest of our lives.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So that wasn't, yeah, it wasn't political, but it was more like I had questions about it and how it was being. I guess it is kind of political too, because like
it's the implication.
the implication of political, the nature of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the other one is that so we've had a couple of, like, America is a country that's no strangers to shootings and guns, right?
No.
And we are, without a peer, the worst in the world.
Mm-hmm. In terms
the
of gun
first
violence and fatalities.
Yeah, we have no, like, it's not even close.
No.
Right?
It can't be. We're number one.
So you would think that we found the bottom of the barrel of, like, yeah, you come to America, yeah, there's a chance you'd be somewhere and someone starts wilding out and kills you. You'd think that's the bottom of the barrel, correct? In the last couple of weeks, we found a deeper segment of that barrel
Yeah.
where not only can you just be hanging out in some neutral space and something happens to you, but if you make the mistake of just, like, knocking on the wrong door,
I mean, you should have known that.
some otherwise non-mass shooter, a person who isn't out there, seeking violence, is just, instead of answering their door like a
Yeah,
regular person,
yeah,
is
yeah.
going to approach you with a gun and just blast.
It's that story. There was two of them this
There's
week.
like four.
There's four.
Yeah.
So that's what I find, like, really fascinating about it. I mean, besides just the sheer like devastation of it all, because this kid was like a high school kid, like looking for
This
his
is
brother.
the Ralph Yarl.
Yeah, I think that's
16.
probably the biggest story of them. Is how these things trend, and all of a sudden there's four of these types of stories. Like, it's just like, what? Like, the human experience is baffling in that way, and that's kind of beside the point. But yeah, I don't know, man. It goes to show, like, how much fear and anxiety and hostility people are living in, like, behind closed doors, when they absorb all of this, like, hate-filled messaging from, I'm not gonna say Fox News, but you
I mean,
know.
you might as well. You can.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think we mince words around
they're
here.
not the only bully on the block these days, though.
It's true,
You know,
it's
you
true.
got your OANs and the other ones who literally just, I mean, they stoke the flames of this, like, fear and just like fear thy neighbor type of shit, and it's so crazy. Like, I really, the fact that you can't civilly open your door and you're, like, clutching your gun so hard that a minority child, like, knocks on your door and that's your first instinct and reaction, like, that's insane.
That was my thought initially. Okay. And that was before we got to, well, first off, gun violence, especially in, like, the tragic way. Like, if you're talking about gun violence in the way that people are, Chicago is violent, they have gangs and stuff, like, that gun violence is different to me, because that gun violence is basically the extension of gangs and drugs, and, like, a person isn't shooting because they are crazed per se and they go on a random shooting spree. It's like, no, I was on the block selling rocks and I had to protect my turf, sort of situation, or this is a rival gang and we need to, eliminate them. Like, that's a more, like, poignant. You've been rewatching The Wire.
Yeah.
There's a term, basically, like, being in the game.
Right.
Whereas, it's a point of emphasis to not just go out and shoot random people. Like if you're
Right.
killing someone,
Like if you're in the game, you know what you're in for, and you know the risk. And those who are not in the game should not be like just taking random fucking bullets.
exactly.
You know?
Right. So that's a different gun violence than, I'm just upset. I'm going to go out into a Walmart and blast the first 10 people I run into.
Which is, we had a brief conversation about that and how it's such a hard thing to wrap your mind around. Just the especially like schools and like where children are, and like I don't know, like to want to just like inflict that level of violence and hurt on other people because your life is so dysfunctional and unhappy. It's so dystopian and crazy. And as much as like I don't want to be like it is a mental health issue, but that's like such a deflectory like conversation to have. It absolutely is a mental health issue, but it's also a gun issue. It's a problem with guns in this country. It's a psychological, like, American issue, which is a gun issue, so you can't just be like, it's a mental health issue. And it's like, well, also, like, what level of mental health, like, help does the government offer, like, next to none? Yeah. Like, you guys won't even pay, like, for kids to eat. Like that's how fucking ridiculous you are, and just like you don't take responsibility for anything,
Right. But even then, the mental health excuse, America isn't the only country with mental health problems.
Right.
Like every other country in the world has people who suffer from depression or anxiety or schizophrenia or what have you.
Don't have as much access to guns.
They don't have access to guns, and also, just as you mentioned earlier, they have access to mental health care. It's not something that is taboo and also not unattainable on a financial level.
Right.
You've seen those videos of people being like, hey, so how much do you think it costs to have a kid in America? And you'll ask someone like the Netherlands or Britain or whatever, and they're like, oh, I don't know, like $20 or like something along those lines. And it's like, no, actually it's around $100,000 or whatever you go. That's if you're insured
To have a child?
Yeah, the cost, obviously if you're insured, like most of the cost goes to your insurer, but if you weren't insured, it technically you could be on the hook for $100,000 depending on what they do for you.
That's exciting.
Very great system.
That's
you got
incentive to have children. And then they're like, oh, population decline and blah blah blah, it's a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Only white population decline. But even up like in Canada, just our neighbor to the north, if you have a kid there, they actually pay you $5,000.
Sick.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pump out some babies up north, dude.
Why not? It's a good racket. Help them out, send them up for adoption, and keep the money.
Take the adoption money too.
I mean, you got a whole business
You got
plan
a
going
business,
on there.
dude.
We need to workshop that a little more
Yes.
off camera. But speaking of distractions, another thing, and this is what actually got me on the topic, or got me to want to talk to you about this, because I don't know if you've heard about this. There's a new excuse that I have heard from left and right people.
Okay.
I imagine it's because we're everything's so bad with the gun violence here that we're basically at a loss as far as like what can we do, what can we address to, like what's caused, like we just can't understand it, right? We can, but we just like there's a defense mechanism that keeps you from hammering on the real issues.
Like, why does this keep happening?
Yeah. So one thing that's been percolating, and I wanted to see what you thought about it.
Yeah.
Mass shootings happen because the news reports on mass shootings, thereby incentivizing other shooters to want to commit a shooting because they know the news is going to report on them. It makes them infamous, and they want to be a part of that. So now mass shooting isn't really so much a mental issue, it's a clout chasing issue.
Okay. Yeah, like that's always been there to a degree, because you've always had like, there's been copycat serial killers, and then people who have tried to like pose as serial killers and things like this throughout history. But to me, that's just like one piece to the puzzle, because there's also like pretty nefarious anonymous group chat type of like 4chans and things like that, where they're called like anon heroes and stuff, where there's literally like communities of people who will encourage you to do it, and it's kind of this, you know, sicko style like psychology of like eating yourself, you know, where they basically egg it on in a way. They're like, you won't even do it, you're not going to do it. The anon mentality of just like egging people on who are, you know, already in desperate places, but like they basically encourage it through like antagonizing them and being like, you're not actually gonna fucking do it, you're not gonna blah 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 blah, and like it becomes this weird echo chamber of amplifying this like level of desperation. And like when somebody really needs help, and this is the community of people they find that are actually just like vile and want to like encourage them to do terrible things, and they like worship like shooters and shit like this. There's like it's dark humor, if you want to call it humor, but it's pretty sick.
Well, is it meant to be humorous?
Yes, to them it's meant to be humorous.
Okay, so they're not really trying to get anyone to
yes
shoot.
And no, you know, like at that level, those kind of people are the kind that will say despicable shit, but then it's all a joke until somebody actually steps over that line, you know. Okay. It's like gay chicken. You know, like
yeah, that is so you and I are both born in the 80s, late 80s, and grew up in the 90s. That term gay chicken is a term I haven't heard in probably 25 years.
No, it's been like 10, because they used to
gay chicken.
We used to talk about it at in K-Town, and used to say it all the time. In relation to like Fast and Furious or something. But gay chicken's essentially like you just keep getting closer until like you don't kiss, but like who backs out first is like the thing. And you know, it's classic straight male insecurities on full display.
It's like I kind of want to experiment, but I don't know how to. So what if I just trick one of my friends into kissing me?
Yeah. Well,
see how I feel about that?
It's supposed to be a joke, but like all jokes from back then, they don't age so well.
It's a joke. Who's the butt of the joke and who wins?
I mean,
do they both
if
lose?
You both discover your sexuality together, then you both win, you know? A new dimension of yourself.
Oh God! See, this is what the kids are missing out on. They don't have the.
I'm sure there's a Gen Z version of that. It's
no judgment. I'm not a fan of the intergenerational fighting. Do you know about all that stuff?
I mean, I think it's pretty lame, really. Like in general.
Pipe their hair this way with Gen Z's. Like,
I guess we're millennials. I suppose
we're the oldest millennials.
Yeah, I guess we're not the oldest though. I think there's 3 or 4 years of us. But like millennials started getting blamed for like everything for a while, and now there's a new generation to start blaming for shit, and it's like millennials get to start doing some of the blaming, but it's fucked up. All it is just like things change, you know, and everyone gets like, look at these damn kids.
But I feel like when Gen Z popped up, they immediately pit Gen Z against millennials. Like, and by they, I mean like, you know, you don't read a lot of BuzzFeed. I do, because I have to know what.
Didn't they just shut down BuzzFeed News?
BuzzFeed News.
Okay,
BuzzFeed.
So BuzzFeed.
Yeah, there's BuzzFeed and there's BuzzFeed News.
Oh, okay.
Gosh, this is a whole different conversation. I wish we had another hour to deal with. But, you know, despite regular BuzzFeed being, you know, listicles and nonsense quizzes, stupid drama, celebrity
paparazzi
stuff. Yeah. BuzzFeed News actually did some really good news.
Like for 1 year.
I mean, their entire time they were up, they were, you know, they would do some really good stuff. Like they've won Pulitzers. They've done some very good stuff. Yeah, like it was legit. And every now and then I'd catch something and go, oh, this is a really cool.
I just remember they had one story that they were the ones who broke it. And I can't remember what it was.
Me either. There was something that.
And then I haven't heard shit from or about them since. So
I want to say it was a celebrity death of some sort, but like beyond that, like maybe there's some foul play.
I thought there was some political stuff they broke. It was like
I can't remember, but yeah, like either way, they were legit, and it's like it's such a the fact that the world is turning into shit in various ways under the cover of darkness, that BuzzFeed News is the one that gets shut down.
Mhm.
Not because they do bad work. They actually do pretty good work. It's just that we don't ingest it because we'd rather go on regular BuzzFeed, which is flourishing, and know what pizza topping we are instead of like knowing like
it's just not profitable.
exactly. And it's like but that says a lot about society to me.
I mean, this is where I've gotten with all of it, and in terms of just America, if it doesn't like make money, like we're just not gonna do it, you know. And
But what makes money though? The things that make money.
yeah, I mean, it's just capitalism in general, you know, like what's the incentive to do the right thing, you know? There is none in America, you know, like there's people who try, like communities and things that put effort towards it, but that's the thing is it's effort, and if it's not profitable, our government isn't getting in bed with it, you know? So that's where like all the conspiracy stuff and everything just like becomes really boring to me, because it's just like, bro, at the end of the day, it's just money. Like somebody was trying to make money. So yeah, like put the pieces together all you fucking want, but it's just called capitalism. When you get down to it, it's like, and is it nefarious? Yeah. Is it gross? Yeah. But it's capitalism. It's everything you are like, fuck yeah, America. Or it's like, no, it's kind of fucking gross, you know? So
Yeah, but I think the point I'm trying to get at is it is capitalism. But the thing is, why isn't like if it's okay? So if the motive is profit, why is it that watching a group of 20 girls rip each other to shreds on The Bachelor is profitable?
yeah.
Versus watching a news segment that explains how billionaires are poisoning your rivers and taking money from you and effectively like destroying your way of life. Like, why is it that? Because if we're talking capitalism, it's like you vote with your wallet, right? So the fact that The Bachelor is successful and BuzzFeed News is failing isn't because they are doing something, isn't because The Bachelor is doing something right per se and BuzzFeed News is doing something wrong. It's because a person looked at these two options and actively chose to vote for the nonsense on screen.
Well, yeah. I mean,
like why like that's a mirror to society. It's like why do we constantly choose that over the substantive stuff?
So I think it's, I mean, I want to say two-part, but it's more than that. But to me, like, humans get on board with like things that are more anecdotal versus like large scale, because the large scale things are harder to quantify and to make sense of, and or to feel like connected to, or to have it like you can have an impact. Like people are so desensitized to like mass numbers. It's like the larger the number of the like report, the less impact it has on people in a way that hits them in their feelings. And that's the only thing that like moves a lot of people in America. So therefore you have this anecdotal thing, and by anecdotal it's a human you can see. So like you hear like in the news like things that are being shared like that are viral, it's always like this person had a cousin or this person's sister, and then it's like a one person scenario story, and that will move more minds and hearts than being like the data says hundreds of millions of people will be affected by this pollution. But then they'll go, you know, somebody on TikTok will be like, my sister got cancer from this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and has this very specific narrative thread that people can follow. So it's the same thing where like with The Bachelor, there's a narrative thread. It's all like right there. It's relatable. It's human to human. And people can just like go with that, and it's digestible. It's like potato chips, you know? People don't want to grapple with the harder, like, big brain things. And it's not even big brain. It's just like large data sets,
Well, I think you kind of hit something with the potato chip thing, because it's big brain. Yeah, isn't the correct word, because it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
Oh, these fucking oligarchs are taking control and destroying everything. That's an easy enough concept. But I do think that.
But you're powerless in that.
You're powerless if you're someone that works. You work a regular job. You're just trying to get by. The last thing you want to do is come home and look at some more dystopian nightmare shit, right? You want to, get your potato chips. I don't want to cook a dinner. Like, I don't want to sit there over a stove making something healthy. Like, it's much easier to just open this bag of potato chips, veg out, go to sleep, wake up, and go through another heartbreaking day of like reality.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's so funny. Like reality television is called reality television because it's the furthest thing from it. Like realistically, The Bachelor is such a false reality. These producers and there's these entire teams set up these elaborate dates that are meant to be so romantic and so perfect, and that's the illusion that they're like presenting to these contestants and to the viewers, and they're like, oh my god, that's so amazing. But like reality is so much more harsh and just uncomfortable, and there's just so many like tragedies happening. That's the thing. If you want to bring it like full circle with like the gun violence, like we're so desensitized, to like all of these things that it's impossible for, like, you can't live a healthy, productive life if you're gonna like worry about all these things. Can I at this point in America, it feels like you can leave your house and just like stumble into a mass shooting at this point. I've never encountered one, but I saw a stat the other day that was something like almost 25% of Americans at this point have somebody they know that's been affected by gun violence.
Yeah, I saw this. I saw the stat. I didn't dig into it.
I could be misquoting that number.
No, that's what it said. But what I don't understand, I didn't investigate, but it was like, okay, do you mean they just were in a situation where a gun came out and
it's like a Dick Cheney situation where somebody's
shot in the face? It's like whatever. Or was it? To me, it seems like, okay, yeah, I was in a situation where someone pulled a gun out and I was uncomfortable, and that's kind of like a gun situation. Like we had to like tell them to put it away, or maybe they shot it or went off or something on accident. Yeah. In which case, I've been in that situation where someone like had a gun. I'm like, why do you have that right now?
I've seen a gun.
Yeah, it was, I don't
and
know
I
if
was
that
like,
counts.
whoa. That's a fucking gun. And then I thought about it and I was scared. And then I was like, wait, that gun raped me.
Show me on the doll where the gun touched you.
Right? No, those types of surveys and stats can be so misleading in so many different ways, but it doesn't feel too far off from like a possibility that like gun violence in one way or another has like at this point it's 100%, because you see these reports and it's just like, this is fucking insane. There's more gun like shootings than there are days in the year. Like we're getting to that, and it's like, all right.
So, but to kind of bring it back to what I was trying to pick at before we went on our segues, we are unstoppable with one train. Yeah, can't be stopped. This thing where, okay, we're not going to talk about the amount of guns we have in the country. We're not going to talk about mental health. We're not going to talk about the simple fact that we live in a country that, instead of producing an environment that allows a person to not have anxiety, anxious and build hatred within their own heart, we actively cultivate a society in which you're constantly on edge, constantly feeling alienated, constantly feeling like at any moment you need to kill someone because there's just crime or whatever, or just what have you. We do everything we can to make you psychotic.
Well, yeah, and the politics have gotten so vitriolic and so divisive in a way that, like, literally, it's so tribal. They're like, hey, the other side of this country that isn't, like, on your team is trying to destroy this country.
Or even just not you.
Yeah, like, so...
I think it's not even tribal that way. I think it's just everyone, like, you can't trust anyone.
Yeah, and that's, like, the landscape that modern politics has been cultivating for years now. And it's, like, that's why, like, at the beginning I felt so defensive, even being like, I don't even want to identify as, like, leftist, because it's all so gross at this point that there's no winning, you know? Like, as soon as I say that, there's an entire fucking like 50% or less or more, I don't know, of the potential audience goes, fuck this person.
Right.
This person is a piece of shit. Of course he likes that. And then they just go from there. And then it's like, formulate an entire human being and put them into that, like,
AKA straw manning.
Yeah. So it's just gotten to the point where, like, there's no genuine, like, conversations that are productive. There's no, like, discussions around actual ideas. Everything is just meant to deflect and make, like, everyone enemies of, you know, like, forming enemies from shadows, you know? Like, it's just like, what are we doing, you know?
And that's my problem with the whole media causes mass shooters thing, is that, to me, it is a deflection. And it creates a new boogeyman in this matter that will only serve to deflect from real issues. So, because
or take any responsibility for it.
Exactly. That's the main thing, taking responsibility for it. Because if you're sitting there saying, well, first off, the idea behind it is, if mass shootings happen because of copycats. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
First off, we were having mass shootings way before, like, copycat, or before the media was really, like, on it, I guess,
amplifying.
Like, if you want to say that the constant news cycle of multiple day things, like, no, first off, it's news, number one, like, should be talked about, okay? But the other thing is,
if it bleeds, it leads. So
the other thing is, it implies that without the news doing this, that your mass shooter isn't going to do that, which is completely false. I don't know if there's a single manifesto or anyone that you could talk to who says, I committed this crazy crime because I was encouraged somehow, like, by the media to get involved and be a killer. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't think there's any evidence that shows a true correlation between a mass shooter and someone wanting to simply get clout.
No, but I'm thinking about it a lot, like, just right now, in terms of, like where we shine the light after these things happen. And it's the same song and dance. And is it productive in any way? Does it encourage more shooters?
Productive? Well, that's a different topic, I think. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's just like, where do you put the focus as media, you know? You kind of report on it in the same sort of way. And I don't know, like, maybe you got to rewrite the playbook. I don't think they're not, they're just a reaction to, like, what happens, you know? But the symptom of it is, it's not coming from them, I don't think. Do they help? No.
I don't think they can at this point. I do think they can. I'll get to it after you finish your point, but
no,
I mean, the media.
Yeah, I guess it's like, there's got to be a better way to discuss these things, and that's it, you know? Like, it's the same thing with how we hold politicians accountable and how we hold journalists accountable. It's just like that level of, I guess, standard has degraded so much in the last 15, 20 years, it feels like. That now just, like, everyone is so dirty and everyone is so, like, I guess, I don't know, there's just blood on everyone's hands, it feels like. And there's nobody that's going to, like, prop up any level of decency, because politicians are so entrenched in playing the game of politics that, like, they can't even stop themselves for a second and just, like, be a human being, you know?
Right. They have to be on.
They have to, because it's like, well, if you say this, like, there's a whole team behind it. Like, if you say this is going to happen. So they're planning, like, all of these things. And it's just like, just stop. Like, can you just be a fucking person? Like, no, you can't. You just can't, because then you're losing the game. And it matters more to win in America than to, like, be a decent person.
Everyone silos off, and even that term, I hate using that term, just because like siloing off implies that there is a cynical reason for siloing off, not a definitive right and wrong position, right?
But but that's right though. It is cynical, and that's why they do it.
Well, politicians for sure.
Yeah.
But I just mean like regular people too. Like shooting goes off, go to the comment section on YouTube.
Mhm.
You're gonna have your two sides. Oh, another mass shooting in America. You know, we need gun control. Another, and the other side is like, oh, here we go. They're gonna use this against, you know.
But that's what drives me crazy. Is because there's a very rational there's a rational response, and it's common sense gun reform laws and like making people more accountable for their purchases.
Common sense to you.
It's common sense. Like, it's absolutely common sense. You could trace bullets to like the nth degree. You could do so much, so much, and nobody wants to even talk about that because it goes to this binary way of thinking. Because if you even talk about that, they're going like the right. They're going to take all our guns and blah blah blah, and then I can't defend myself from the government, who I support when Donald Trump's there.
Yeah.
And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're going to shoot the government? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, what? And then the left, and like the most extreme left, is just like, yeah, burn all the guns. And it's like, that's not going to work. But why can't we track every single gun?
Yeah.
If you don't have a trackable gun, like, let's get a fucking like actual list and just like get the shit figured out. There's so much technology present, and I would love to be smarter about this, and I've heard like actual things in regards to how you can go about this, but there's plenty of things that can be done that just don't happen.
Shall not be infringed.
Cool. That's all I'm gonna say about that, because
Well, I feel like we can go on and on about this forever.
Right.
There's just so much about the gun stuff. But one thing I was alluding to earlier was something that the media could do. This may sound radical, but I do think,
we changing topics.
not quite yet, but I think we probably should if you want to.
Okay, if
Talk
you want
about
to get
something
into it. Yeah, but go ahead.
I just wanted to leave this out there. There is something that could be done as far as the media, and maybe doing something to really jerk people awake about the carnage that happens in these shootings,
Mm-hmm.
which is they show the bodies.
Oh, man, but isn't there there's a name for that? It's like murder porn and shit.
Sure, you can. I mean, was it Rule 34? There's going to be something.
I mean, I don't mean actual porn.
No, I don't.
But, like,
I know you don't mean that, but I just mean in the sense that there's going to be someone out there who's always going to take a thing and turn it into something that isn't. So not actual porn, but just like, these are dead bodies, and you're supposed to be jerked. Like, your senses are supposed to be jerked with this, instead of you being like, oh, this is really sweet.
Yeah, no, you're right, because there's so much level of like censorship in America of like acting like this, we're decent, and the decorum of it all, and it's like, no, look at it. Yeah. That's what fucking happened. Like, because
this is what you're enabling.
This is what you're fucking like allowing, you know. Mm-hmm. But there are like sickos who, and I'm not saying murder porn like that's a thing they're jerking off to. It's like,
no one's saying that.
Yeah. So don't start doing that.
No one's talking about that.
But there's that level of I don't know. It's like, remember when the internet first started?
Sort of.
One of the first viral things that ever happened was like rotten.com.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
If you remember that. And it was literally just the grossest thing the internet had, and they just randomly display. All you do is go boop, next, and you just see murdered corpses, you know, fucking like dead dogs and all this fucked up shit.
My God, it did not take any time for someone to put.
That was like one of the first things that I remember, like, somebody telling me about, and I was just, it was awful. It was purely like, it was vile.
Wow.
But yeah, like there's a level of voyeurism, and it's like how you do it, you know, like, but again, like, this is why humans react to stories better than they do just like numbers. But because if you can take something like that and if you can make the right point with it, maybe. But I don't know if that, like, it's not gonna fix everything, but
yeah. But so the psyche behind it is, you know, if you recall the Emmett Till story.
sounds familiar, but
Okay, just to recap for anyone who may not know what
I
happened.
don't, so I need to recap.
Okay. I'm going to get to Cliff Notes because it's, first off, it's heartbreaking, and second off, it's just, we don't need to do. So anyway.
Make it meaningful while I wear this cum shirt.
Once again, we have to address your...
my attire. We don't have to. Let's move past it.
Is that from Afro?
No.
Okay, so Emmett Till was, I believe it was Mississippi.
Right.
He was in. Young black man. This is, racially, even more so than now. Contested Mississippi. We're in the 1950s, 1960s. I want to say it's before.
Back when America was great?
Back when, there was not a single problem, and we could just go back there and be super great.
Gotta make it great again.
He was this young man, or a young black kid, I want to say he's around the age of 16.
Right.
In town. And he allegedly whistled at a white woman.
Allegedly.
That's
a big allegedly.
Maybe even, touched her, on her, nothing, I guess, sexual, but just, made it known that he was thinking she was looking fine,
Okay.
So, this woman tells, I think, her brother. They get pissed because how dare this, Negro sit there and eyeball a white woman like that and objectify her. So he gets his two other buddies. They go find Emmett.
The good old boys?
The good old boys.
They're definitely good old boys.
Basically, drag him out of his house, beat him. I want to say drag him by, with their truck, and then, just destroy this kid and dump him in a river, right? Ugh. So, forgive me if I don't have all those facts 100% correct, but it's just terrible. But anyway, so they find a kid.
Yeah.
And they have a funeral service for him. This is, another black person killed by some racist whites, another day in the South. So, but his body is disfigured, right? He's fucked up. He's swollen from being in the water for so long. It just looks, it's crazy. These pictures are nuts. So instead of having a closed casket funeral, which is what they would normally do when the body's so fucked up, his mom, what was her name?
Something Till?
Yeah, I want to say May. Anyway, she opts for an open casket funeral, and the media's there, and they take pictures and they show what he looks like, which is part of what caused a lot of civil rights movement, activism.
Right.
Similar to if you're looking at those images of black people marching and getting beaten by cops and bitten by dogs and stuff like that, those images were instrumental in the civil rights movement to show no, this is your opposition to civil rights isn't just this innocuous thing that has no consequences. It has consequences, and this is what they look like.
That's good. Yeah.
That's the reason why if you're talking about gun violence, it's no, show them what voting for people who are against gun rights does. This is what it looks like when you vote this way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, and it's very valid, but it's also you can't do it because then it's you need a spear with a tip, right? And that's a spear with a tip. So you get to plunge that into somebody's heart and make them realize with the narrative, with everything. That's why I talk about anecdotal and narrative based conversations are the things that move people's hearts. That's something that look at it, don't look away. And it's how you frame it. So it's hard to say because if you're just showing gratuitous violence even in a movie, it's just well, why are we fucking doing this? So it needs point and purpose. So yeah, it is around the conversation, and when it's all deflectory, just thoughts and prayers and oh, how did this tragedy happen and blah blah blah, and it's no, look, these fucking kids are dead. And why can't we go to the senators and the people who have these conversations with those photos and be why does this keep happening, and why do you still be like this? And yeah, I mean there's their point. Your point is very well taken, but I just think it's how you use that. it's that sword and shield you need for the narrative to change minds, you know?
Right. But so to add to that, these images of these kids, so a lot of people don't know what these assault rifles do to the human body, right?
Yeah.
So I think even talking about this now, people who are watching this, they're thinking, oh, these images are just going to show like kids on the ground, bloody, like hole in the side, and that's not going to be the case.
No.
What these guns do to the human body is they don't just put a hole through your head; they explode it. Like these kids are effectively decapitated.
Ugh.
Right? Like they've lost the top of their skull. There's a exit hole the size of their body.
And this is, you don't even, like, that's not the conversation even. You don't hear somebody describe it in that way.
Exactly.
Because it's so much like deflection in terms of just like responsibility for what's happened. But I mean, one thing I will say, it's like the only thing preventing that, well, not the only thing, but one major thing is the families of the loved ones who have experienced this. They're lost, like in your example of Emmett Till, his mother was the one who was like, I want people to see this, but like I can't imagine a lot of parents like wanting I'm sure they don't want to see those, and let alone like be. But then when you talk about the other side and like how Alex Jones weaponized an entire narrative around them being actors, and how fucking challenging that must have been for these people for years and years to deal with like irrational fucking like sickos like harassing them. It's just it's so despicable. And right. I do think there's a really valid conversation around like how the left doesn't fight dirty, and how if they really wanted to get in the mud, because Republicans don't care. They'll fucking throw out. They'll do every dirty book in the, every dirty trick in the book. And if the left really wanted to fucking like, pull up their sleeves and fight with some actual ammunition, like that's a route to go. But they won't, because they're fucking like pussies.
I mean, that they very much enable.
Forgive my sexism.
They very much enable the sort of game that goes, like
they get gamed, man.
We're better than the Republicans. It's like, are you? Because I don't like, typically when you're better than someone, you fight against them, not just sort of like coddle them in a way. But
coddling. Yes, that's great. That's a great word for what they do.
Yeah, I have a whole. Gosh, I wish we had more time today, because we got all sorts of shit. But
what time are we? What are we looking at?
Well, we've been talking for about an hour, and I just I had more stuff. I didn't think we'd go for a straight hour on guns and whatnot.
Well, if it sounded like there was did you want to get into the trans thing?
I don't know if we have time to really wrap it up or handle it the way it needs to be handled. I will say we could probably talk about something else I saw that was interesting. Jesse the Body Ventura. Ever heard of him?
I've heard of him, yes.
Yeah. I saw a video recently, and he was talking about, I don't know if he said this recently, but because he looked actually younger in the video. But
okay.
He goes on a thing about how there should not be billionaires. And I love Jesse. I don't agree with everything he says, but he has this way of, just because of the way he looks, the way he talks.
Wrestler's got great delivery.
He's hit excellent charisma.
Yeah.
And he just has a way, no matter what he's saying, if I said what he was saying, because of the way I talk and act sometimes, I look like some sort of left elitist, right? And I recognize that. But when he could say the exact same thing, and because of his like North Midwestern, like Minnesota, dialect, and just the way he looks, and he's just
body,
man.
Bro.
He's the man. He's a prototype of just like this man's man.
Yeah.
Ain't got time to bleed, So he could say the exact same thing and come off super normal guy, right? And I guess might as well bring it up and just show you what.
Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't heard about this.
There should not be one billionaire in America. None. And I'll tell you why. Because there is nobody that works hard enough to earn $1 billion. And my argument is this. The 2 jobs I did in my life that were physically the most demanding and mentally the most difficult that I ever did paid me the least amount of money. One was going through buds, and I challenge any billionaire to put up with 6 weeks of that shit at $62 every 2 weeks, you know? And the second was right before I went in the Navy. I had a job with the Minnesota Highway Department, couple bucks above minimum wage. I worked for the bridge crew, and you know what my job was? I worked a 4-day work week, 10 hours a day, so I could have Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the weekend. You're 18, of course you're going to do that. But I worked 40 hours in 4 days on the bridge crew, and guess what I did? Ran the 80-pound jackhammer. I challenge any billionaire to run the jackhammer for 40 hours 1 week and tell me he works harder than that. No, he doesn't. That's why I believe there should not be a billionaire in the world.
Okay, I love that.
It's great. It sounds great.
Yeah.
It's like it just comes off perfectly toned, the cadence, everything just comes off perfect, and it resonates.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I don't agree. Now before you go on your thing, I just want to put out there that I don't 100% agree with Jesse.
That there should be no billionaires?
Correct. Okay, now I'd say what you're gonna say.
I mean, to a degree, I do think in a fair and responsible world, there's no need for billionaires. Like, should there not be? Like, I don't know. But is there? Does your greed necessitate $1 billion? It's with so many problems in the world, and money being at the center of most of them for a lot of people. I agree to a degree with the sentiment. Now, how do you implement the non-billionaire rule? I don't fucking know, but I do think it's a fascinating point that he makes in terms of just the hardest jobs I've ever had were those jobs that sucked the most, that paid the least, and you looked at it with COVID, and the jobs that were deemed essential were not high-paying jobs, you know.
You're out there risking your health, and
yeah, it's a funny thing. And there was this thing that happened this week. There was 2 different CEO videos that were leaked. Did you see those?
I saw one in which the CEO was berating her people because they were not getting a bonus, and she was, and they were like, "Oh, we don't feel motivated to work." And she was like
"Get out of Pity City."
Yeah.
Her name's something like Amy. It's not Amy
it's
Adams.
Like Alyssa or something.
Yeah, Alyssa. Yeah.
I'll put in the information.
Either way, she's. These CEOs are so disconnected from reality of what their workers want, need, or are. There was another one from Utah, and he ran a tech company. He had some really bad hot takes. One was basically he tried to he kept tiptoeing up to this idea of if you're a mom and you're a full-time employee, I'm not saying you can't be a good full-time employee and be a good mom, and I'm not saying that,
right?
But then he kind of came back and he's but I'm kind of saying that.
Clearly, if you're spending 8 hours here, you're not spending 8 hours raising your kid.
Yeah, it was super disconnected, and I think there's a lot of things happening in the CEO world around trying to get people back into the office, because also them being on Zoom calls and people recording them saying the despicable shit they used to just get to say in their town halls to their employees, where no employee can openly challenge you, so the only the echo chambers these CEOs live in is other CEOs,
right?
Because they go around having these fucking circle jerks for each other and talking about how great and their profit margin and this, that, and the other, and meanwhile this bitch has the audacity to lecture her employees about not getting a bonus, and meanwhile she was getting 3.3 million in her stock share, whatever.
Yeah,
and
I think
stock
she made
share,
like 6 million total.
yeah, I think what I remember, her salary was something like 1.1 million already, and then she's getting like 3.3 in stock share incentives,
something along those lines, yeah.
and then some other stuff. But like everyone else is not getting a bonus, and
Right.
so I get it. Like you as a CEO are incentivized through the stock doing better, but like the disconnect for me, I guess, is where you are in life in your silver tower and like lecturing these people about how to like make you more money when you're literally like not willing to pay just bonuses, and you're getting a 3.3 million. And I get it, it's stock based, so it's different, but also like give your employees stocks.
Yeah.
Like motivate them in that way.
Well, even with it being stock based, the dividends you get from the stocks is okay. This is how much money is left over after paying employee salaries and bonuses.
Yeah.
So the idea is that her bonus was, I think it was, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 million. Okay.
I think it was, if I remember, it was 3.3 or 3.4.
They had the option
Yeah.
to earmark that as an expense for the employees, or just take it for themselves.
Yeah.
She took it for herself. Now, that's one thing, but the sinister part is, if you're a person that makes $1 million, I don't know how long she's been the CEO at this place, but I'm sure this isn't her first year cashing $1 million check.
Yeah, it's high-end furniture too. That's where she works.
Okay, which is okay, yeah. So, if this is you have money in the bank, right? Your employee,
yeah,
they need this money, not just because they want to buy a new Benz or add another wing to their mansion.
Yeah.
No, they need it to like pay for food, pay their bills, fix the car they have. You know, it's like, listen, is it possible you get the 50-foot yacht instead of the 55 one this year, or just wait an extra year? Like, can you do that for your fellow human? Is that so hard to ask?
It's also just, I don't know, the wealth inequality between CEO and employee has just gotten so ridiculous, and just the need for like stockholders to have a more profit this year than last year. Like, at what point is just like having a sustainable business like good enough, and then like giving a better quality of life for your employees to incentivize them to be better employees, to make sure your business, you know, continues into the future, you know?
Yeah.
Like, instead of you and your fucking rich asshole friends getting more rich, you know?
Right.
Like, you hear, like, I've watched stories on, like, you know, I just watched something, it's a mochi shop here in Little Tokyo.
Okay.
It's lasted 100 years, and it's in the family.
Nice.
And the way they talk about their business is so romantic and so beautiful, and like the son is like, I don't know if he's stoked, but he understands the sense of like responsibility and how important it is for him to carry on this tradition of them making this mochi like here in the way that their ancestors did in Japan, and also like the way his family has done for the last 100 years. And they run a successful enough business that they get to be like, that they get to continue this tradition.
Yeah.
Which is like a beautiful thing, you know? But corporations and these CEOs who want to fucking lecture their employees, who literally have no incentive to work harder than whatever it is that you're paying them, and you're not going to offer them a part of your stock option, like, and you're going to lecture them. It's like, yeah, fuck you. Like, what are you talking about? You know, like, this is not how, like, these bad managers who think they're like so entitled to their employees' times, their employees' emotional investments, their employees' like just want and desire to make their company better, when they're literally, they're incentivizing the bare minimum. Their incentive is to not be homeless.
Right.
That's why they're there.
Exactly.
Because they have to be there so they don't lose their fucking job, and they can fucking pay for their, but they don't even have the prospect of owning a house.
Right.
So like, what do you want from these people?
Yeah, I only have a few hours of your time. I want the rest of it. You're not an employee. You're an almost. I mean, you're your asset, but almost a liability. You're a
You're
cog
an
in this
indentured
wheel.
servant.
Yeah, like I almost have to put up with you.
Yeah. No, and it was the guy from Utah. He used an anecdotal fucking like thing in his whole buildup about one employee who was so dedicated that he had to sell the family dog. And it was like, wait, is that your measuring stick for
Yeah.
like what you want from your employees?
Yeah, how dedicated are you?
Yeah, like look, and then he went on this thing about talking about how dogs are. He's an advocate for dogs being treated as humans. It was so weird. You should watch that clip.
Okay.
I was watching on the Young Turks, and I only caught the cliff notes, but it was just like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? But they're just the most entitled, like, rude people. They literally operate on different rules. Like, based on like some of the HR conversations she has and has had with like CEO types, their expectations are so fucking stupid.
I mean, we've heard straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
Some of those conversations.
And how they expect employees to be grateful and like all this shit, and it's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, fuck all of you.
Like, they're a gross set. But to come back to the Jesse thing, because we should probably wrap up in the next 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So everything obviously I agree with everything he was saying, if not 100%, at least in the spirit, which is that the idea that working the 40-pound hammer or 80-pound hammer or jackhammer and sitting up in your ivory tower, deciding who to lay off so you can meet your bottom line quota of growth that you're trying to do for
stressful.
It's like the way we equate value is so, at this point, it's amorphous. Who does the CEO create value? Because the CEO of McDonald's decided to roll out the Szechuan sauce one more year. Is that the high level thinking
Somebody
they're
put
doing?
together a pretty sweet deck that like convinced everybody up top that they did a really good job.
Yeah. So
that's kind of how it works.
They really they really think highly of themselves, that they're just so integral to the part and to the success of this company that they have to be paid this amount. Now, here's the thing. All right, here's my dissent from Jesse. I agree that it's wrong to hoard billions of dollars.
Right.
Okay. But I think that's different from having and earning. See, my thing is, if you're a person who has, I think you should be able to have $1 billion in liquid cash. So not counting your assets or your company, your housing, or your real estate,
all your investments and whatnot.
Not counting that stuff.
Okay.
You can have $1 billion in liquid cash. Okay. Anything other than that, I think, should be taxed 100%, unless you are planning to use that money to do something. So let's say you're Tim Cook of Apple.
Yeah. Steve Jobs from the grave.
Yeah, or maybe because he's a corporation. Maybe this doesn't quite work one-to-one. But let's just say you are a person, you're a company, you want to build this grand facility for your company. And this facility is a $100 billion facility.
Okay.
Right? I think if you earmark, and you basically have to get, I won't say permission, but effectively like, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're making all this money. We're going to build a new facility. It's going to cost $100 billion. I need to save this money up, and that's what we're going to do. I think you should be allowed to collect that money under the understanding that you're not just going to sit on it. You're going to spend it, which thereby puts that money back into the economy. So you have to circulate this money. And I'm sure I'll get into this in later videos where I'm talking about how economies actually work. But the problem with these billionaires is that they sit on all this cash.
Right.
And it essentially locks down this money that could be gone to actually create jobs. If you're building a facility, that's construction jobs, plumbing jobs, electrician jobs, and then you're hiring people up to fill these areas.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
okay, like I'm following you, but at the same time, like there's a few points that I think I mean, we would get roasted if we had an audience about like just the take in general, but like what you're describing is almost trickle down economics in a way.
Well, in a way, in the sense that.
But that's like Billionaires' argument. It's like that's what they do, But you're saying like no, they actually hoard. But the other thing is like when you assess a billionaire's wealth, it's based on not only their liquid cash, but all of their investments. Like Donald Trump gets to claim he's worth way more just by his name being worth however much he says it's worth. And then somebody else says like, it's maybe worth this much. And then they kind of meet in the middle. They have like an audit of like that value. So like, yeah, like the idea that somebody has enough wealth to, generate that is great, but it's also like you have to be somewhat of a visionary to do that properly. And the idea of investing in a company is different than investing as an entrepreneur in somebody else's vision. So if you're the visionary who's opening factories and doing this, like you better know what the fuck you're making, because otherwise you're just spending a bunch of money to like give people temporary construction jobs or whatever.
All jobs are temporary.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, if you have that much money, you're not going to invest $100 billion just willy-nilly, because you have to think about, like, is there a time limit? Do you have 5 years to spend? I just reached $1 billion. Like, you better spend it on something to get it back into the economy. And, like, maybe that works. I don't fucking know, but there should be some idea in terms of like how to do that outside of like taxing, and I've also thought about like taxing and taxes is such a stupid like antiquated way that we do things, because it's like legitimately say like the percentage of taxes, and this is how voting works but not really, is like okay, we're taking this much money and we're gonna spend it however the fuck we want. It's like, well, no, why can't I just put on my taxes? Like, I want 100% of my taxes to go towards, fixing the fucking roads.
Right.
Like, I wish there was a way to designate where your fucking money goes. That way, everyone who has an argument of like, oh, I don't want to pay for these fucking poor people, I'd be like, I want 100% of my fucking taxes to go towards like, food insecure children, Like, yeah. I wish you could just do that. Yeah, but instead we have these democratically elected individuals who are going to make up where that shit goes. But wouldn't it be a lot better? And with the tax system already as complicated as it is, why can't we just pick what bin we want our fucking taxes to go to? That would be so much more efficient.
I agree with that. There is
Sorry, I came like kind of zigzagged and made my own point about like money,
good.
But
yeah, whatever, you gotta let it flow. But there is a reasonable counter argument to that. Even though I agree we should, but there's a reason for that. I won't get into that.
Is it reasonable?
It's yes. But I do want to say real fast about the.
Is it democracy?
No, it's just that it's difficult to. The problem is corruption, right?
Oh shit!
To give you the clip notes on it. Yeah, so it's like it's corruption, but also it's difficult to. Plan a country if you don't know exactly how, like if you can't manage the money.
Okay, but
they're mismanaging it.
Right.
That's the problem. And they're doing it not because they're dumb, but because they're corrupt.
When the Pentagon failed their own audit,
right,
and that's where most of our money goes,
right.
Fuck that. So I don't care. Like, give us 10 to 20 bins, and then give us more like things, and then like do a fucking pre-audit for where people want their fucking money to go.
Yeah.
It's not that fucking hard. As much as you're making an argument for it, like, I don't care. Like, let Americans decide where their tax dollars go.
Sure. And I agree. I'm just saying, like, the problem is, what if 100% of Americans say we don't want any of our money going to the military?
That would never happen.
I know it wouldn't, but
there are so many people rock hard for taxes for the military.
Sure, but in a situation where that's possible, like, because it is possible. Maybe not 100%, but, maybe enough to not have a functional military.
Okay, then still, here, 20% of it's going to the military.
Just basically
divvy out the rest of it. I don't care. There's options here. This is the thing.
Sure.
It's like, right now we don't have options. And this is something I've been thinking about this whole time, and it's not a new idea, but why shouldn't every fucking person in Congress and in the Senate have to wear fucking badges by the people they are bought by, like NASCAR.
Right,
If you've
right.
accepted money, you get a big old NASCAR fucking coat that you wear in the Senate, and you fucking like rock that shit,
Yeah.
and you own it. Do that. Those two things alone fix a lot of problems in America.
They're not going to do that because of corruption.
Oh, what? You keep throwing me, man. I didn't know America was corrupt.
It's corrupt. They're not going to do that. But let me go back to something you said earlier, because you said my earlier idea was trickle down economics, and it is structurally, but the difference, and this is the main part, which is why trickle down economics in theory works. Trickle down,
In
say
practice.
Let's say trickle up at first.
You said trickle down.
Okay, trickle down works, so does trickle up in theory. In practice, only trickle up works.
Right.
The reason why in practice trickle down doesn't work is because there's nothing forcing them to spend their money. If there was something forcing them to spend money, it would work. Which is the main difference in my idea, is that you would force them to build. It doesn't matter if we don't have, like, we need houses.
Yeah.
Build houses. No fuck. They're empty or haven't been sold. Build them. We'll figure out a way to get people in there, right?
We'll put some asses in there.
Right. So that's the main difference. Is like you get these people, they can't hoard this money. They have to actually actively keep it moving. Obviously, there's ways to nuance, ways to, like, okay, well, how do we make sure they get enough time to do it, and what's a fair way to do it? But it has to be done.
Right. No, I mean, I didn't mean to blow it up and just like,
No,
like,
it gives me an opportunity to explain. Like,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, in theory, like, trickle down economics could work, but also that name is like, that's bad branding. It's gonna trickle down. Don't worry. It's like, I'm up here at the top and I'm sprinkling.
Yeah.
I'm putting sprinkles, and you at the bottom, who are like 100 fucking stories below, you'll get some of those.
Yeah.
It's gonna trickle.
It's
trickling.
good. It's getting down there, man.
Be a fucking thunderstorm, man. Thunderstorm economics, man. Make your fucking billions rain.
Dude, now if you all have money, how the fuck am I supposed to get cheap labor?
That's a good point. Exploit the masses. It's such a bummer sometimes, just thinking about how many, like, I don't know, well-intentioned people, like, that this country had in its history, and like wanted, like, to make a better future for people, have, like, had ideas and systems exploited and, like, taken advantage of, and now it's a sad state of affairs. And it's like, I saw a brief argument on Twitter about just, like, the idea of, like, population, and, like, we need to make kids, and it's like, what is that?
I love these people.
That song, Lady Gaga, we met in a hopeless place. We fell in love in a hopeless place, or something like that.
Go?
I fell in love in a hopeless place, or something like that.
Okay, that sounds familiar. Yeah.
I think of America in that tune. Like, you want me to fucking make babies in this hopeless place? Oh man, so it's just gonna create a kid that I'm gonna love and be like, good luck, you fucked.
Sorry, like, don't have the financial ways to give you everything you need and deserve.
I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna take everything I have, and I'm not gonna have a lot.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah. That was good. Wasn't as structured as I thought, but we're just too, like, we're just all over the place. Like, we just get these, like, sort of
I think we brought
thoughts.
a lot of I think we went on some tangents, but brought it back a few times, I think we got a more productive conversation. I think the last 2 episodes, or 3, how many? This is 4?
This is 3.
This is 3. We spent the first, like, 30 minutes just talking about bullshit. So we got into some meatier stuff, and I think this is a better, like, test bed to have a few, things we want to get through.
Next time I'm going to set up a timer. Remember that?
Oh, okay.
Like, you say what you got to say. 5 minutes. We'll do 20 minutes a segment.
Tell
5
us, comment
minutes.
section.
Yes, tell us. Do you like it when we just go off and be freestyle and everything, or do you want us to
I like the freestyle because I think you get to more things. But yeah, we also have to figure out if we're going to be an hour or a 3-hour show.
Yeah, freestyle is better because it's you can almost get into, I don't want to call it emotional, but you kind of like can feel the vibe and go wherever you're taken.
Yeah.
Versus,
I don't want to feel like pressured.
Yeah, like because I have to like stop. You have to stop if you structure. Like you talk to. Yeah, you shut up. We go on to the next topic
now. Vote. That's a classic. That's a callback.
It's a callback.
We'll inform you later.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well. Yeah. It's good. That was good. Let's get out of here.
All right. Thanks, everyone.